So I watched the animation called Dororo, which was a 24 episode anime. On like I completed it on like 4 days or something, and it was very promising and it started up very well. It had a very interesting topic, but I think it didn't end up uh at the same level as it started. So the topic is there's going to be spoilers by the way. The plot is that there is this guy who basically without limbs and features. So basically, it's happening in some feudal Japan. There's this lord. His land is savaged by disease and everything, and everybody's dying, is starving, and he wants to make a pact with the demons so that he is willing to give anything to demons in order to get prosperity to his land. And he doesn't know what the demons are going to say. He's basically offering this in a temple. What happens is that his first son, when he's born, lightning kind of strikes, and basically almost everything is stripped away from this boy. His limbs, he doesn't have any limbs, he doesn't have any eyes, any nose, even skin, even. So it's just bones and vessels and some muscle tissue, but he doesn't even have proper bones. I think he even lacks a spinal cord or something. And what happens is that okay, so the guy sees that the pact uh, is now confirmed. He basically wants to throw away the boy. The boy is given to a midwife. The midwife is just putting it. This is all happening like the first episode, putting it on a river and then leaves it to die. And then over time we see that yes, the land prospers. So yeah, it's not like the demons are during the pack directly visible, but the anime does have lots of demons later on. When the boy grows up, uh, his name is actually Hyakumaru, and the name Dororo comes from the person he meets. And it's interesting that the little boy, that person Dororo, is actually a girl. So because she behaves just like a tomboy and kind of agrees with the boy or he referrals. And he's a survivor, so even though he's young, he basically is not really affected by much about what's happening. And they meet when the Dororo is in trouble and actually kills a demon. As he kills these demons sometimes, but not all the times, those demons who basically ate his body parts, he gets those body parts. And yeah, at the end of the anime, he basically gets everything. And it's about the journey that those two have. So because the guy lacks any kind of senses, he doesn't hear, he doesn't see, he doesn't smell, he didn't even have a skin. Taste station, I don't know, maybe he can taste stuff. The way he sees the environment is a different way. So basically he can see the souls of things. It's explained by some priest, and therefore that's how he can actually still see the environment. I think grass and plants are green, humans are like white, and anything demon or is evil is red or has a reddish tint. And humans, when they have killed people, they start to have some reddish tint. They are not like demons necessarily directly, but they are like kind of getting evil. And he himself has that tint as well. So that's how he can basically respond and fight. And the guy who finds him, he's kind of a doctor, kind of. So he's a guy who gives prosthetics. He basically gave all his prosthetics. He has knife or sword arms, so his real arm, he can pull them out. But there are a lot of inconsistencies, like if he really doesn't have any limbs, he shouldn't even within his prosthetics arms the ability to use fingers and such. But we see several times that he can kind of grab onto things, whereas a prosthetic would be like a fixed hand like this. You wouldn't be able to grab things, right? You can best use these fixed hand structure to touch stuff and try to grab it with this, but he's like very efficient of it. He uses like his mouth to get rid of those prosthetics and come out with the sword. I wonder why he didn't have any sword pieces in his limb prosthetics as well, because at some point he actually does that. And he starts to initially gets his skin back, but oh, he doesn't even have proper peripheral nerve sensation either. So he can move his limbs, so he has nerves, he has a brain, but he actually doesn't sense anything. So that's how he had been basically living. So he doesn't basically even normally feel pain. And he receives his skin, then he receives the nerves, then he, I think, yes, then he's basically, because he now has skin and the peripheral nerves, he can now feel stuff. He can start to feel pain, which basically upsets him. But what upsets him the most, but he's not really used to most, is that hearing. When he gets hearing, oh, by the way, he's covered with a mask, he covers with prosthetic nose and ears, and as he's getting them, they are dropping and are replaced, and the um, like the audible sensation is the among the most dramatic ones. Um, and at the end, he gets those back, but I don't actually understand. I got a bit over on the nose. I don't have a understand what happens with his mother, his brother, who is born later, and he's just like a regular boy to the same feudal lord. And there's a lot of debate about how he shouldn't get those limbs back because the demons are dying and the pact with the demons are going to be cancelled, and now the land is going to perish again, which it actually does. So the question is, does this boy really need to be sacrificed for the rest of the humans, or it's evil itself, and therefore anything that is earned on another sacrifice is not worth it? And that actually is one of the concluding answers. Basically, Dororo says that instead of relying on some samurai or feudal lord, we are the ones who should be earning or basically using our hands to do agriculture and not wait something granted from somebody else, which indeed is. So when you rely on something, then when that other party is now is not functioning anymore, so you basically lose what you have relied on, right? So because of that, that's a good concluding sentence. The other thing is that he gets everything back. The only thing he ends up having is his limbs and then the eyes. So he got his eyes back the last. I kind of hope that he would get his vision earlier, so that now that after he's getting his hearing, he can actually hear, he can start talking and respond and such, and from a doll basically he starts to become more of a human being, and that's part of the anime itself. But I wish that once he got his eyes back, maybe earlier than his limbs or something, you would see more interaction with Dororo. He's interacting, but at some point he's getting angry, he kills people. So there's lots of lost people. There was, of course, the thing about who is the demon. Is it the humans or the demon? There are demons. There's a demon, for example, that he spares because the demon does not actually kill. Kind of a lady who sucks the life force, turning into a spider, but actually doesn't kill because by sucking life force, she can resuck the life force by keeping humans alive. At the same time, there are humans who are more evil, like the guy who loses his mother or grandmother, uh, is like traumatized, and he simply wants other people to suffer as well. Instead of being basically doing anything with the demon, he says that he's helpless. He basically feeds the demon other people, and there are others like this, like they are feeding the demon so that they can maintain an order or something like that. So it's kind of a cliche, maybe, like who is the real monster type of question. But in this setting, it is also novel. I was glad that there are those interesting takes. On the other hand, his brother, his mother, who is like always helpless and prays and such, and finds herself responsible, and the doctor who helped him, they kind of unite at the end in a castle that is burning. And I guess I thought that they would be escaping, because the mother says to the second to her boy, to basically Hakimaru's um, brother that she neglected, that I'll be always with you now, and they are kind of finding peace. But it's later implied that they died, because that's what the Fatal Lord says, and nobody basically objects them. They are not seen again, and there's really no way to escape from that castle either, which means they are finding peace, and then they're finding peace in death, which wasn't necessary, to be honest. That Tahomaru, the Hakimaru's brother, uh, he's kind of a more sensible person, but he sees that his brother needs to be sacrificed and such. But then, if once he fails to kill him, and then sees that he deserves all this thing, he basically he himself actually turned kind of a demon, because he has these his eyes, but he gives these eyes back, kind of thing. I don't want to go into those details. But there are the aides of the Tahomaru, and the Tahomaru himself. They're not actually bad people. They're kind of became victim to the being with this type of feudal lord. They all died. Yeah, apparently they die. I thought that they would survive. And also Dororo finds money, and she wants to change the land. And we seem to see even seen that she has like grown a bit and has long hair and looks like now a real um a real girl. But they got separated, and they never unite. At the end, basically, Hakumaru is goes on travel to atone for his sins or something, for killing people, and Dororo is going to work with the farmers. But basically, once Hakumaru gets his sight, I think with his limbs back, I think Dororo sees it. But with his I'm not sure, actually. The last thing that we see is that he gets frustrated because he almost couldn't save Dororo at some point while pushing the rocks, and he sees that he doesn't have limbs, and he starts no longer getting his limbs back. That means that his limbs and his eyes are in the possession of the Lord, he thinks, but it's actually a demon who couldn't really eat him, because he wasn't born dead. Apparently, that Goddess of Mercy statue, losing that statue had kind of protected Hakumaru. That's a detail. But anyway, yeah, Dororo and Hakumaru never get a closure. First and second, it's open-ended what happens with the mother, Tahomaru, and the doctor. And third, it's also not immediately understandable by me whether the feudal lord dies, because he loses everything, and Hyakumaru sees him one last time, and feudal lord thinks that he's Daigo, I think was his name. He thinks that he's going to be killed, but Hyakumaru says that no, I'm not turning into a demon, I'm a human and such. Okay, that's great and such. But at that point, the feudal lord starts bleeding. Like his eyes are getting bloody and such, and blood starts to come out from his head. Why exactly? I don't understand, because before that he doesn't bleed, but Hakumaru doesn't do anything to him. So I don't understand why he starts bleeding. And the feudal lord sees in that moment that instead of relying on demons, he could have relied on Hakumaru, because he was such a strong person. Despite not having almost anything, he could reclaim all these things. He had such strong will and such strong desire to survive. So instead, he could have actually, instead of sacrificing that boy, could have actually relied on him. That was also a good message. So there were all these good messages, but at the end, with couple of these characters, it's I don't know, and there's no second season or anything. This is how it ends. So overall, it's a bit disappointing at the end. It's not a total disappointment, like everybody dies or something. Then what was the point then? Uh, but at the same time, I wish that all these remaining parts would have been concluded as well, so that we would fully understand what happened. And I mean, I wish they just all survived. Like the Lord now learned his lesson, and all these mother, brother, and doctor people learned what they have done wrong before, and basically Hakumaru and Dororo having some nice moment, because Dororo always helps Hakumaru, but Hakumaru is like becoming human again, but they never meet when he became fully human again. Overall, I I don't regret. I was very curious, because it was a very curious thing that he lost the stuff and going back. Sometimes quality of drawings aren't great, but I think it was okay still. Uh, and the art style was okay. And there's always this mystery aspect, and that you no longer are sure, so who's the demon, where the demon's gonna come from, is the human evil or good, and such. Um, yeah, those type of things. And there are basically a lot of sub stories, and pretty much all these sub stories, all these sub characters, they either die, or in a couple of cases, yes, when they survive, then like that spider lady, there is a conclusion there. And I just wish that there were a couple of more points that were certain at the end of the anime. But overall, I recommend it. If you're watching it, you probably watched it, and it's a good anime. And I'm glad that we have these standalone story animes that don't last decade after decade, and then again don't conclude well, or don't conclude at all. So I don't regret watching it. It was an interesting thing. Yeah, I think that's all for this, and yeah, I am now back to my Black Clover, Boku no Hero Academia, One Piece, and anything else do I watch? I think that's on Boruto. Yeah, so 4 anime. Yeah, so it was a nice change from that. That's all. Let's end the stream.